Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show.
Hey, Health Coach Nation. If you're a coach, a wellness professional, or a beauty practitioner, you know how important it is to protect your business while growing your impact. That is where Alternative Balance comes in. Alternative Balance is a membership-based group that provides liability insurance and essential business resources to help you feel confident and secure in your work. Whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up your business, their coverage and benefits like marketing tools, business growth webinars, and 5-star customer service are all designed to help you thrive. I highly recommend checking them out. I've even interviewed them on the show before. Go to alternativebalance.com to learn more and get coverage that fits your business needs.
Entrepreneur and you're feeling the overwhelm. We actually were just talking, Dan, before this podcast about how it's the holiday time, and as entrepreneurs sometimes we get to pick our own schedule. We get to schedule our own schedule, but sometimes it's a double-edged sword because we either let our work dip into personal hours, or we procrastinate, or we don't work on our business because we have all this free time, not used to it, and not used to being our own boss. So I think it can kind of work both ways. But I'd love to hear for you, what got you into starting your company and what you do today?
Yeah, fantastic, Hailey. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. As you can hear from the accent, I am an Aussie. I'm based here in Sydney, Australia. It's in the future. It's actually Friday morning. And I've been in the kind of coaching space now full time for about 7 years. But what led me down this path was a real passion for health and fitness. So 18 years ago, I started my first ever personal training studio. I did a couple of years in corporate, 5 years at college, university. And after a couple of years in the full-time world, I was like, no, that's not for me. I want to be my own boss. I want to create my own future. I want to create a world that doesn't yet exist. And so I opened this tiny little personal training studio, and I absolutely loved it. But what I quickly realized in the early days of owning that studio was I was a great personal trainer, great coach in that sense, but I was terrible at business. But I loved it. And so that led me down this self-development path, this path of just acquiring as much knowledge and as many skills as I possibly could. And so I would open another business after another business. And what I identified in the industry as a whole was that there was a lot of people like me. There was a lot of people that had this real passion and fervor for helping people, but they lacked the skills on how to operate a business. And so 7 years ago, I started a coaching program. I started it within one of my education companies. And then really in the last 3 years, it's been where most of my focus has been. About 90% of my time is spent in my coaching business, Fitness Profit. We primarily specialize helping personal trainers, gym owners, studio owners have 3 things, and that is more income. So let's help them become profitable so they can stay and thrive in this wonderful industry. Number 2, more impact. So we only want to work with great business owners that are making the world a better place. And then number 3, and you talked on this a little bit just before, is more freedom. So freedom, very subjective, but it essentially is doing more of the things that you love with the people that you love. So how can we craft a life by design, not by default, that enables them to do this? And so that's kind of what got me up to this path. That's what I absolutely love. And each and every day I get to coach, close to about 200 people, primarily around Australia and New Zealand, but we've got clients all around the world.
That is amazing. I love that. And I love the talk about freedom. So one of the things that is very easy in the beginning of your business to feel is overwhelm. And I think I guess, what are your thoughts on how does somebody start to have a system around organizing their time and getting themselves out of overwhelm instead of kind of dwelling in it?
Yeah, this is a favorite topic of mine. And I would say that overwhelm doesn't only happen at the beginning stages. I think it actually happens throughout. So I've been, as I said, I've been in business now for 18 years. I still experience overwhelm. The only difference is now is I have a better system in how to deal with the overwhelm. So it's not that I'm immune to it whatsoever. It still confronts me. And I really believe that overwhelm comes from two main sources. Number one, you just have too much to do or too many ideas. And so it's like, I don't even know where to begin right now because there's 1,000 different things. I'm listening to this podcast. I'm watching this YouTube channel. I'm reading this book. I'm attending this mastermind or this workshop or this seminar. And so there's 1,000 different things that I can do. And I just haven't been able to discern or prioritize what is the most important. So that's the first source of overwhelm. The second source is they don't actually know what to do. And so they're very closely related. And so it's like you have this paralysis because you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, should I jump on LinkedIn right now? Should I do a reel on IG? And so it's a lack of identifying again what's important. So first and foremost, one of the most I love systems and frameworks. That's how I operate. I'm very logical in that sense. And so the first thing that I love to do as a system to reduce that overwhelm, that overthinking, but also to get a lot more clarity is just to have a power list. And a power list is something I'll do on a weekly basis, and it's something I'll do on a daily basis. Now, what is a power list? This is a kind of term that was popularized by Andy Frisella. He has a power list of 5. I actually was doing this many years before he shared it, and I was just doing it for 3 things. So in your business, if you were to only accomplish 3 outcomes for the whole entire week, what would they be? That would really enable you to move the business forward. That if you looked back and reflected on the week, you'd go, you know what? That was a successful week in itself. So I'll do this on the weekend. I generally like to do it on paper with pen. I find my mind just works a little better that way. I'll be outside my normal office space and I'll look at my business goals and I'll go, all right, what is my big 3 for the week ahead? Let's get really crystal clear on what those outcomes are going to be. And then that gives me a little bit of a North Star to focus on for the week itself. If nothing else gets done, if I get those 3 things done, I've moved my business and my life forward. That's the weekly power list. I will then do the same on a daily basis. So I have a very clear rule is I am not allowed to finish the day until the next day is planned out, because I don't want to start reactively. I want to hit the ground running. When the sun comes up, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what my day looks like, and I know what my big 3 is. And so I'll look at my weekly big 3, and then I'll be breaking that big elephant into bite-sized chunks and go, all right, what are the 3 things that I can do today that move those weekly big 3 forward? And so just having I know it sounds so simple and so basic, Hailey, but having a power list on a weekly basis and on a daily basis would be a tremendous point and place to start for a lot of the listeners.
Totally. I totally agree. I have a similar approach, but I don't call it a power list, but I feel you on just picking your top 3. And I think you highlighted a really key point, which is overwhelm really stems from lack of prioritization. You think you have to do everything and everything's really important right this second, and you don't know what to prioritize. And so for somebody who, you said doesn't know what's important necessarily, like they know, I want to put on my, power list, get a client this week or get XYZ sales. But that's, as you and I both know, that's like a project. That's not like a task. You got to break that down. So what would be an example maybe for somebody who wants to put on their power list? Like, I want to get sales. Like, what would be maybe an example of how they break it down to smaller things and what you mean by smaller things? And what that could look like on their power list.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm actually flipping over. I use the High Performance Planner by Brendan Burchard, and every single Sunday I've got my big 3. And one of my big 3, which is pretty much a mainstay every single week, is 6 sales. But it doesn't just stop there. what I then do is I'll reverse engineer, because the 6 sales is the outcome. What's the processes that I need to follow? What's the system that I need to follow to get and achieve that outcome? So for me, it would be making sure that, I'm updating all my Facebook and Instagram ads, for example. It would be promoting a live event. It would be doing some outreach to previous clients, and I'd put a number on outreach to 20 clients. It would be to create X amount of pieces of content for social media and email. It would be to, right now I'm creating a new VSL. I'm then creating a new paid marketing campaign called an omnipresent campaign. So I've got 6, 7 different processes to achieve my outcome. And so, I use the big 3, I used a lot of the terms called rocks. They're my rocks. The 6 sales is my rocks. Then I want to rock hop, and I want to reverse engineer. I want to break that down. And if I follow and trust in the process and have consistent application to the process, then the outcome is going to be a byproduct of that.
Yes, I love that you differentiated that there's outcomes and then there's processes or tasks, and that you break that down for yourself. Now, another thing that I see that comes up for entrepreneurs is they're like, well, I don't know if the outreach is going to work. I don't know if the posts are going to create anything. And so they have this feeling of uncertainty. And there's almost this like, if I do these things, then I'm entitled to XYZ result. And if it doesn't happen, they get upset. But entrepreneurship, as you know, is a lot of uncertainty. We have to become comfortable with it and trust the process and keep going. What happens to a lot of us is we have the uncertainty. We do it a couple times and then we give up because it's not working fast enough for us, or I don't feel like doing it without seeing immediate, tangible results. So how does somebody manage and juggle that uncertainty feeling when they're looking at their process and they're like, I'm going to put trust in this, but I might need to tweak it. It might not be the right process. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's a lot there. I think a lot of the time people want instant gratification. And so they feel like they deserve an outcome because they've followed a process, and maybe they've followed that process for a week or a month, right? And I'm not a big believer in doing something just if it's not working, but you've also got to give it due time. So you've got to find that sweet spot between, hey, like, have I actually committed to this? Have I dedicated myself to it? And have I given it everything I can? And I would create a deadline. And I'll give you an example of this. You just featured on my podcast, Profit Made Simple. And it was fantastic having you on. This year, I said, all right, I'm going to do a podcast. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but rubber hits the road. Let's make it happen. But I'm only going to commit to 6 months. I will then reassess if the podcast is working as an acquisition and nurture channel at that point in time. Now, I didn't commit to 1 episode, 5 episodes, or 10 episodes. I committed to 6 months of episodes, so I would have enough data to actually see if it's working. So I think the first thing people need to do is be a little bit more realistic. It's not going to happen overnight. And in fact, the results compound. So I'll use the podcast as an example. We're only getting better and better and better because I'm getting better at interviewing. I'm getting better guests. My audience is now building. And so similarly, when you do things, you'll actually get better results the more you do it. But I would have a deadline in there as well. So, and it's got to be a reasonable deadline. Is this enough time to ensure that I've got enough data to make a really good decision on whether this is working or not? If it's not working, then replace it with something else. Last year, I tried YouTube. Didn't work. So I replaced it with the podcast. And so you need to, be really discerning and go, is this working for me? If it is, let's double down on it. Let's really commit to it. If it's not working, then let's replace it accordingly.
Yeah. And I would say overestimate how long you think it's going to take. So
100%.
Yeah.
Really wise advice. It always takes way longer. And again, this is what I mean by being realistic. Just because you've done 20 reels or you've done 20 posts or you've done 10 podcasts, that's not enough. It's always way more than what you think it's going to be. And where I feel most people, and I'm going to generalize a little bit, but where most people struggle with this is they give up too easily. Is immediately, like, they just haven't been consistent in their application. They want that instant gratification. They want that calendar full of calls, but you haven't given it the due commitment or respect.
Yes. And just like in the podcast world, like, I think it's a crazy amount of people who do not make it past hosting more than 7 podcasts or something like that before they just stop. And you and I mean, you started your podcast recently, but I've had my podcast since 2017. So already it's extremely easy for me to stand out on my podcast and have a podcast because I've been doing it for that long. And so I think if you're willing to play the long game, your entrepreneur future is going to be really bright, versus if you give up after 7 episodes or 20 reels, like you said, it's like, you have to develop yourself as an entrepreneur who shows up, right? So how does someone develop that discipline and willingness to keep going? Because one of the things that I see a lot is people go off feel. They're very passionate about their business, and so they'll go off feel vibes all the time. And so that means it's like this: when their energy's high and they're feeling it, they're going for it. And then when their energy's low, they stop and they're not consistent. And it's like this. So how does somebody who's a feeler, they're a heart-led entrepreneur, how do they sustain themselves instead of the roller coaster?
Yeah, we want to get off the roller coaster. We really do. And the entrepreneur roller coaster, it's up and down, and that's just in one day, never mind a week or a month or, a longer period as well. And this is where the structure comes in play. It really does help you just be more consistent and more level. And that's one of the big things we work on with our clients. And so we help them create what's called a perfect week formula, which is a structure to their week that reflects their highest priorities, but it also reflects the key levers that they need to focus on within their business. And so every single day might have a theme. I actually have 2 themes to one day, for example. So on Mondays, I will do meetings and I will do content, and that will be structured. I'll know exactly what time I'm doing my content each and every week. And then on the Tuesday and Wednesday, they're traditionally for me very heavy coaching days. So that will be very structured. Now, there's a little bit of flexibility in there. You're going to plan about 80% of your time. So because in business, you do need to be fluid, but it just means that things are consistently executed and done. It's not done on how you feel. It's like, no, this is what I've determined is needed for my business to succeed. I've put in there 8 hours of marketing because I know if I market more, I'm going to end up with more leads and more potential to acquire clients. I've put in there 8 hours of sales because, again, if 80% of my week is spent in the sales and marketing, then I know that I'm going to be more successful. But I'm also going to make sure that I don't compromise my own personal well-being and the things that are important to me. So I'm going to have my workouts first and foremost in there. I'm going to have my date nights. I'm going to have my time with my kids. And so we want to live a life of design that is structured, that reflects your biggest priorities from a personal perspective, but also from a business perspective as well. And so now you're not just getting up and going, well, how does my emotions feel? I'm going to do this because I feel like it. It's like, no, this is what I have decided is most important. This is what I have determined is most important for me to succeed. Does that mean like you feel like always doing it? No. But if you always do what you feel like doing, then you're not going to end up with the business or the life that you want. And so we want to not just chase our emotions all over the place. And so I would really implore everybody, have a perfect week formula. I learned this from my coach and my colleague and my friend, Craig Ballantyne. He's got a great book around it. And it's just very, very simple. Is map out all areas of your life. Do it Monday all the way through Sunday. And then that way we're not riding the roller coaster. Now, shit hits the fan. We know that We know that as entrepreneurs, business owners, there's obstacles, there's challenges. So what happens when you get one? If you fall off the bike, you've got to get back on. The worst thing you can do is just ride that emotion and have a lot of pity and everything else. So, some of the things that I will do, these are really simple things, but just to help me, again, get back on the bike is quite often I'll have to change my physiology to change my psychology. And so that might be going out for a run. It might be just getting some sun. It might be having an ocean swim, whatever it is. All right. Number two, I'll quite often lose perspective. And so I will just write down 10 amazing things that are happening to me right now in business and in life. And so I'll switch that negativity bias back into a positivity bias. That will be the next thing. And then the third thing is I will do something that serves. So I will create a piece of content. It might be writing, some nice messages to my team or some of my clients. But again, I want to switch the energy. And so when I do those three things, I call it my bounce back ability routine. And I've got my structure, then I'm not letting emotions dictate, what happens on a day-to-day basis.
That is awesome. Yes, I have something similar. I call your reset ritual, where it's, when you get rejection or you feel like you're going to spiral or something, having what is that thing that helps you shorten that bounce back time, which you just highlighted.
Right.
Like, I think you just really have highlighted that overwhelm doesn't go away in your business. Challenges don't go away in your business. There's never a moment where you're just like, I've arrived, everything's perfect. You get a point, I think, where things get more comfortable and you do things faster than you used to because you know how to do things now and that kind of thing. But really, at the end of the day, you're saying that it's about the tools that we've employed, the structures we've employed, the strategies we've employed to help ourselves through. And we just get better at doing them and bouncing back and managing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. So we all have ebbs and flows, every single one of us. And I'll quite often say is your success in business is completely correlated to your ability to handle stress. The more you can handle stress, overwhelm, then the more successful you're going to be. So it doesn't go away. If in fact, if anything, there's more for you to deal. You just have better tools to deal with it better. And so I have, I shared the power list. I shared the perfect week formula, the bounce back ability routine. I have about 10 different routines, framework structures, so I can get out of those ebbs really quickly. So I can consistently show up, because if you're laboring, you're in self-pity, you're in this real defeatist mode for a couple of days, then you've lost a couple of days of productivity. But if we can turn that couple of days into a couple of hours or even a couple of minutes, then we're going to win the game of business.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who are maybe juggling starting their own business while working full-time or being a full-time mom or parent or all of the above, all at the same time?
Look, I think it comes down to, again, structure and priorities. And so you've just got less time. So we want to be making sure that we're doing the right things within the time itself. So that is where the power list and the perfect week formula can be really helpful. It can be looking at the outcomes and reverse engineering it. I would also say there's a few other little helpful things that may help people just get more outcomes in the time they have. One of those would be a not to-do list. So what are some of the things that you are doing right now that are pulling you away? Because quite often as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we can keep adding things on our to-do list, but how about we actually remove certain elements, because it can be death by 1,000 cuts. We can get to the end of the day and it wasn't one big thing, but it was like that 10-minute scroll. Then it was jumping in that meeting without an agenda. Then it was spending a little bit more time on, a call that I should have, and it bled. And so we have all these little things that pull us away. So I would implore everyone to do a not to-do list. So then the spaces that we do have are as effective and efficient as they can be. Now, what's on your not to-do list? Anything that pulls you away from what's most important. So for me, it's attending meetings without an agenda. I jumped in a meeting the other week and it's my own rule and I broke it, and I ended up getting pitched an MLM company that I have no interest in whatsoever because I didn't ask for the agenda, but that pulled me away for an hour. It could be answering phone calls that you don't recognize the number. It could be scrolling in the morning. So maybe you need to have your phone over the other side of the room, right? So create a not to do list would be one side. The second part I would have is really leverage Parkinson's law. And for those that don't know what Parkinson's law is, it's that the activity swells to the time you allocate. And so we'll all know this from our study days, is that we'll often do the assignment the night before it's due. We'll do all of our study the night before the exam. And we can actually use this in our favor. So you want to set deadlines all the time. When you have a big three and you break those tasks down, you want to put dates next to all of those tasks. And that way we know it's going to be done. We just amplify our productivity and our efficiency, knowing that there's a deadline. Like, it's incredible. I'll know that I've got a big presentation on for a month, but the day before I'm putting together the best slide deck. I'm doing like 10 times the amount of work because I know I've got to show up tomorrow. Well, what happens if I just compress that time frame? So instead of having a month, I've now got 4 days. I'm going to get it done. So for people that are juggling, and I think, a lot of people are juggling. I've got 3 kids. I've got 3 businesses. What helps me stay on track, what helps me be efficient is structure of the big 3, structure of the perfect week formula, not having a not to do list, leveraging Parkinson's law. And then that way I give myself the best opportunity of focusing on what is most important. And probably one more I would add to that, Hailey, is time chunking. Time chunking is very, very important. I like to work in 60-minute time chunks. It can be 20-minute time chunks. It can be 90 minutes. It doesn't matter what it is. But really what that is a singular focus to the task itself. And so I will use a Chrome plugin called Flow Time. You can use the countdown timer on your phone. And I will just sit there and I will dedicate myself solely and purposely to that task. I'll throw my phone across the room because I do not trust myself, and I will shut down all the browsers and I will just dedicate myself. And I know even if I get 3 to 4 quality time chunks in a day, it's going to be a fantastic day. The output is going to be off the charts. And so quite often it's not about how much time you have, it's how you utilize the time that you do have.
Amen. I love that. And I actually have, for anybody who's trying to get into time blocking and breaking things down and planning your week, I have a free weekly planning system at haileyrowe.com/time planning, all one word. But Anne, I have one more question for you. What about, and on that not to-do list, I think one that I would add is overthinking everything. So what would you say to entrepreneurs who they have their power list and they're going for it, but there's so much chatter every step they're taking? Oh, should I post this? Should I not post this? Are they going to think I'm weird? Blah, blah, blah. Like, so much overthinking. How can somebody maybe start to break free from that?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of things I would say. I will talk more big level, and then I'll go really tactical. So number one is you've got to shift the framework into your mindset into imperfect action, right? So a lot of the time we just get stuck in our own thoughts, and I'm famous for doing it, right? And we'll make all these assumptions. What if it doesn't resonate? What if it flops? Who cares, right? Just get it out there, right? You don't make assumptions, just throw it out there. Worst case scenario, it flops. You can delete the post, all right? Or at least you got feedback, which in itself is massively valuable. Like, that piece of content didn't resonate. Great. Now I'll change something that does resonate. And so a lot of the time, I just think we just get stuck in our own head and we start connecting all these dots that aren't supposed to be connected. So I implore you, just get it out there. Take imperfect action, because the feedback you get from doing so is invaluable. It's game-changing. And I know, like, I do a lot of organic content on my personal Facebook page. And for a long time, I used to hold myself back. I wonder what these, my friends are going to think, my partner's going to think, my partner, my daughter's, friends' parents and all of this. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, this is the mission I'm on. If it doesn't work, that's okay. I can quickly delete it. So, in Stoicism, they have this thing where it's like, what's the worst case scenario? Write down the worst case scenario. And when you identify it, you're like, it's not freaking bad. Like, wow, I did a post that flopped. It's like, am I healthy? Do I have my family? Do I have my friends? Do I have, everything else? Of course I do. Like, it's really nothing. It's a speck of sand. It's not even that. So number one would be just embrace imperfect action would be the first thing. The other thing is, when we've got all these thoughts ruminating and going like 1,000 miles in our head, this is the tactical thing, then I would do a brain dump. I would get it out of here onto some paper, and I'd just write down, like, here's all the things that I'm thinking, here's all the things that I'm doing. And quite often, just from that process alone, you'll gain a lot of clarity. You'll at least, the box of birds will be a little bit less crazy and a little less noisy. And it's something that I really recommend every entrepreneur, business owner out there do last thing at night, so you can get some peaceful sleep. Get it out of here and put it onto the paper.
Yes, I love that. I'm a huge fan of brain dumps too. I didn't know that it was a widespread term. I love it. So where can everybody connect with you, find you, all the good stuff?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active these days, getting more and more active. I'm embracing the IG world at Coach Dan Henderson. So that's a great place. If you can find me on Facebook, it's under my full name, Daniel Henderson. I'm really active on Facebook. I still very much am. They're probably the best two places. And also the podcast. I've got lots of episodes on productivity and overthinking and overwhelm and everything that we've discussed today. And that's Profit Made Simple.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'm really happy we got to talk today.
Absolute pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.